My fiancé said, "You're being dramatic. It's just a girl's trip," when I found condoms in her suitcase. I said, "You're right. I am dramatic." Then I planned an actual drama at the airport, and it made it to the local news. I, 29M, discovered something that changed everything about my upcoming wedding. 3 weeks before my wedding, I found condoms in my fiancé's suitcase. Not the kind we used. Not the brand we bought together. These were premium ones, still in their fancy packaging, tucked between her vacation dresses like some dirty secret. My hands trembled as I held the box. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months. The wedding invitations were already sent. The venue was booked. My bachelor party was scheduled for next weekend. When she came home from work that evening, I confronted her directly. I asked her about the condoms, my voice barely steady. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind and told me I was being ridiculous. She said they were just precautions for her girl's trip to Miami next week. She reminded me that she'd been planning this trip with her college friends for months. I pressed further, asking why she needed condoms on a girl's trip. Her explanation made my blood run cold. She said you never know what could happen, that sometimes girls meet guys, and it's better to be safe. She told me I was being dramatic and controlling, that I should trust her. That word, dramatic, hit me like a physical blow. I stood there, watching the woman I thought I knew transform into someone completely foreign. She packed the condoms back in her suitcase with casual indifference, as if my heart hadn't just shattered on our bedroom floor. I told her she was right. I was being dramatic, but I didn't tell her what I was planning. The next morning, after she left for work, I made some calls. My cousin worked at the local news station as a junior reporter, always looking for human interest stories. My college roommate had started a small event planning company. My sister-in-law was a social media manager for a lifestyle brand. I had an idea that would either make me look like a complete psychopath or the most creative person alive. Over the next 5 days, while my fiancée excitedly prepared for her Miami trip, I quietly orchestrated what I called Operation Dramatic. Every evening, she'd show me her outfits, talk about the clubs they planned to visit, the beaches they'd explore. She'd kiss my cheek and tell me not to worry, that she'd call every night. I smiled and nodded, meanwhile researching Miami airport layouts and coordinating with 3 different people across 2 time zones. The plan was simple but required perfect timing. My fiancé's flight was scheduled to depart on Friday at 2 p.m. from our city's main airport. What she didn't know was that I'd be there too, but not to say goodbye. Friday morning arrived with unusual chaos. My fiancée couldn't find her favorite earrings, then spilled coffee on her white travel shirt, then realized she'd forgotten to get cash for tips. I helped her with everything, being the supportive partner she expected me to be. I offered to drive her to the airport, but she declined. Her friend was picking her up, and they wanted to start the party early in the car. Perfect. At 11 a.m., I arrived at the airport with my cousin, my college roommate, and a small crew of hired actors. My cousin had pitched the story to her editor as a social experiment about public proposals gone wrong. The editor loved it. By noon, we had everything set up near the departure gate for Miami flights. The actors were briefed, the cameras were positioned, and airport security had been notified about our permitted filming. My fiancée arrived at 12:30 with her 3 friends, laughing and pulling designer luggage. She looked beautiful, radiant even, clearly excited about her upcoming adventure. For a moment, I almost called the whole thing off. Then I remembered the condoms. At exactly 1:15 p.m., as passengers began boarding, I activated Operation Dramatic. The first actor, playing a distraught boyfriend, started arguing loudly with his actress girlfriend near the gate. He accused her of cheating, of lying about her trip. The argument was staged but convincing enough that other passengers began staring. That's when the second part kicked in. I approached my fiancée while she was distracted by the commotion. I tapped her shoulder and told her I had something important to say. She turned around, surprised but not alarmed. I was supposed to be at work, in front of her friends, in front of the growing crowd, in front of my cousin's news camera disguised as a passenger's phone. I got down on one knee. But instead of proposing again, I pulled out a small box. Inside wasn't a ring. It was the condoms from her suitcase. I spoke loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. I told her I'd found these in her luggage, that she'd called me dramatic for questioning them, and that she was right. I said I was being dramatic, so I thought I'd give her the drama she deserved. I announced that since she needed these for her girl's trip, Since she never knew what might happen, I wanted everyone at the airport to know what kind of girl's trip this really was. The crowd gasped. Her friend stepped back. My fiancée's face went from confusion to horror to rage in seconds. She grabbed the box from my hands and demanded to know what I was doing. I stood up and explained to everyone watching that my fiancée had packed condoms for her girl's trip, that when confronted, she'd called me dramatic for caring. The actor couple nearby started getting louder, their fake argument reaching a crescendo that drew more attention to our area. Airport security approached, but my cousin quickly showed them our filming permits. My fiancée realized something bigger was happening when she noticed the cameras. She asked me if I'd lost my mind, if I was filming this. I confirmed that yes, this was being documented, because she'd wanted me to be more dramatic. Her friends tried to drag her toward the boarding gate, but the crowd had grown too thick. People were recording with their phones, some were laughing, others looked shocked. That's when I delivered the final blow. I announced loudly that anyone who wanted to follow this story could find updates on the social media accounts my sister-in-law had created. I said that since my fiancée clearly needed space to explore her options, I was giving her all the space in the world. I pulled out a folder from my jacket and handed it to her in front of everyone. Inside were photocopies of text messages I'd found on her iPad. Messages that had confirmed my worst suspicions about this trip. Messages that mentioned someone named Marcus, plans that had nothing to do with her female friends. Her face drained of color as she recognized the messages. I told the crowd that sometimes being dramatic means refusing to be made a fool of. Sometimes it means standing up for yourself in ways that make people uncomfortable. Airport security finally intervened, but not to stop the filming, to manage the crowd that had gathered. My fiancée's flight was about to board, and the gate area was packed with spectators. She grabbed my arm and begged me to stop this, to talk privately. But I tried talking privately. I tried being understanding. I tried being the reasonable, trusting partner. Instead, I announced that the wedding scheduled for 2 weeks from now was canceled, that anyone who'd received an invitation should consider this their official notice. My fiancée broke down completely then, sobbing in front of strangers, her friends trying to comfort her while also distancing themselves from the chaos. The final boarding call came over the intercom. Her friends urged her to get on the plane, to just leave. But she couldn't move. She stood there, holding the folder of her own text messages, understanding that I'd known about Marcus all along. I walked away while she was still crying, leaving her to decide whether to board that flight or not. Update 1. The video went viral within 6 hours. My cousin's news story aired that evening with the headline, "Local Man Stages Airport Confrontation After Discovering Fiancé's Infidelity Plans." The social media accounts gained 15,000 followers by midnight. My ex-fiancée did board the flight, but according to her friends' Instagram stories, she returned home 2 days early. Apparently, Marcus wasn't as enthusiastic about seeing her once the internet knew his name. The wedding venue called on Saturday morning. They'd seen the news story and wanted to discuss cancellation policies. I told them to keep the deposit and use the space for someone who actually deserved a celebration. By Sunday, I'd received over 300 messages from strangers sharing their own cheating stories, thanking me for standing up publicly, calling me either a hero or a psychopath, depending on their perspective. Update 2. My ex-fiancée contacted me through a lawyer on Monday. She was threatening to sue for emotional distress and defamation. Her lawyer sent a formal cease and desist letter demanding I remove all social media content and issue a public apology. I forwarded the letter to my own attorney, who found it hilarious. Apparently, truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and everything I'd shared was either factual or clearly presented as my personal experience. The text messages I displayed were real. The condoms were real. Her admission about never knowing what might happen was real. Her lawyer dropped the case within a week. Meanwhile, the story had been picked up by 3 other local news outlets and 2 online publications. A podcast reached out wanting to interview me about public accountability in the digital age. Update 3. 3 weeks after the airport incident, I learned the full extent of what I'd prevented. Marcus reached out to me directly, sending a Facebook message that explained everything. He'd been planning to meet my ex-fiancée in Miami, had booked the same hotel, the same flights. They'd been having an affair for 6 months. But when the video went viral and his name became associated with breaking up an engagement, his own girlfriend, who lived in Miami, recognized him, and ended their relationship too. He told me he respected what I'd done, that he wished someone had warned him before he'd gotten involved with someone so willing to lie and cheat. My ex-fiancée had apparently spent the entire Miami trip trying to convince her friends that I was abusive, that the public humiliation was evidence of controlling behavior. But the text messages I'd shown told a different story, and her friends weren't buying her victim narrative. The wedding that was supposed to happen this weekend didn't happen, obviously. Instead, I spent the day volunteering at a local animal shelter with my sister, who told me she'd never been prouder of me for refusing to be disrespected. Update 4. 6 months later, I can honestly say that being dramatic was the best decision I ever made. The airport incident led to several positive changes in my life. The social media attention connected me with other people who'd experienced similar betrayals. I started a small support group that meets monthly at a local community center. My cousin parlayed the viral video into a promotion at the news station. My college roommate's event planning business boomed after people saw his work coordinating the airport confrontation. Even my sister-in-law gained new clients impressed by her social media strategy. As for my ex-fiancée, I heard through mutual friends that she moved to a different city, struggled to maintain relationships after the video made her locally infamous, and eventually started therapy to address her behavior patterns. I don't feel guilty about the public nature of my response anymore. She'd called me dramatic for caring about her betrayal, so I showed her what actual drama looked like. She'd planned to humiliate me privately by cheating during what was supposed to be an innocent girl's trip, so I gave her a taste of public accountability instead. The comments on the original video still come in regularly. Some people think I went too far, that private matters should stay private. Others applaud the creativity and the refusal to be quietly disrespected. I've learned that sometimes being called dramatic is just another way of being told to accept unacceptable behavior quietly. Sometimes the most dramatic thing you can do is refuse to pretend everything is fine when it clearly isn't. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Because the alternative was walking down that aisle in 2 weeks, promising to love and honor someone who was already planning to betray those vows in Miami with Marcus. Instead, I'm single, drama-free, and surrounded by people who actually respect honesty and commitment. Sometimes being dramatic is just being honest with an audience.